The first meeting of the night. All right, so why don't we all rise for the pledge? All right, the clerk, please call the roll. We probably should have done before we did the pledge, but I'm
Legislator
kind of new
Foley,
here.
Legislator Santulli, Legislator Paul, Legislator Hood Jr., Legislator Earl, Committee Vice Chair Legislator Wolf,
Here,
Committee Chair Legislator Cornell. We have a quorum.
great, thank you. So there's the adoption of the minutes of the March 29, 2022 meeting. I'll move it, second by Mr. Earl. On the question, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, carries unanimously. We have one item on the agenda tonight, and that is referral 9528, amending resolution 212 of 2022 to increase the Green Urban Space Grant funding in the additional amount of $5 million, no county tax dollars, for a new grant total amount of $10 million, no county tax dollars. I will move it, seconded by Ms. Paul. On the question. Good evening. How are you? All right, great. So if you could just tell us a little bit about the request. Okay. I looked through the backup and I'd be interested in seeing a list of the projects. If you can maybe even break it down just in advance of the full legislature meeting by projects that were approved, projects that were applied for but not approved or disapproved, and any projects that are pending with the amount requested or allocated, because that
Yes,
way we can
that's-
take a look at it.
Absolutely, and I'm going to give you both the local government and the non-for-profit applications, because there's two different applications, but
Okay.
the funding source is the same, so you'll see
Okay.
two different ones.
Because I understand that there are a number of projects that were applied for but were not approved.
There have been a couple,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, there have.
For those projects, if you can also just provide an explanation as to why it was not approved?
Sure, every rejection gets a letter of determination as to why, so I can share those
Okay.
letters of denial.
That would be great. All right, anyone have any?
I have a question. I
Okay,
did.
Ms. Paul?
This is something new we are doing?
No,
this?
well, this is an existing resolution that we have. This is our urban green space grant that was approved recently, and this is just an amendment to add more. So this is part of the new Arpa initiative, but yes, it's
that's
just an
very nice,
expansion on
and
an
that
already
is, yeah.
existing resolution.
That will be great for our community, total. And yeah, that's very nice. So did you, okay, we are looking for people who can apply for that and they can do that, right? Yeah.
So it's local governments and not-for-profits that can apply. So the not-for-profits typically apply just for gardens, food gardens, just little walking gardens and benches. But local governments are applying to either fix existing parks or help rebuild or build a park in certain areas that people have been missing out on. So we have kind of a variety of everything.
Well, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, great. I know that Ms. Montel, you had any thoughts you wanted to share with us? Come on up.
Chairman, welcome to those of you from the legislature that are here. I've never really spoken before the legislature before, or a committee of the part or whole, and I'm not even sure how it works. But what I can tell you is that from, as chief of staff of the town of Ramapo, Jenna has been an outstanding asset in terms of helping certainly our communities within the town of Ramapo, our non-for-profits, some of our villages, and the town in and of itself to equitably distribute these ARPA funds. As we know, the town represents approximately 43.8% of the per capita share of what's taking place with the $64 million. And Jenna's gone out of her way to make sure that those funds have been equitably distributed to the towns, to the villages, and to the non-for-profits. And any additional funding you can give, I can tell you one of the pending applications is for the Garden of Hope for Good Samaritan Hospital, where where patients come and people come to reflect in a very quiet space where people come and have a little portion of a garden, and then they take those vegetables and they give it out to soup kitchens and other not-for-profits. And having been there myself and been able to, I know in the very slow schedule that I run, peacefully reflect upon the birds and the sounds out there, I would ask that this illustrious body confirm upon this ARPA funding for the next round so that we can all avail ourselves of that. So thank you for listening to me. I know it's an exception that you're doing that, and to the chair, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything from legislators? Mr. Earl?
Excuse me,
Thank you there, Mr. Chair.
is
I'd
this
just like
the
to-
environmental meeting that I'm
It is.
chairing?
It is. Welcome.
Yes, I'm here and
So I
we're
just
ready
called
to
on
go.
Tony. I'll call on Tony and then I'll turn the reins over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you there, Mr. Chair. I'm just gonna just add that Miss Nazario, right? I'm
Good
getting
job.
close. I'm
Good
getting
job.
close. You're doing a grand job. And like Legislator Soskin always say, you're doing a yeoman job. Keep it up. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cornell, you want to take over where we've been on the question of the item, it's referral 9528.
Yeah.
I
mhm.
think we're about to vote. If you have any thoughts you want to share, any questions?
No, I was prepared to start the meeting. We had a little problem at this end to get onto it, but if the meeting's already been opened, and I gather that we had the roll call, correct?
We have.
All
So
right.
if you'd like to take over, feel free to call for the vote.
Yes, I can certainly do that. Has the resolution been read to the entire group of legislators? Is everybody
Yes, it's
familiar
been
with
moved
it?
and seconded. Yes.
Okay, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the resolution before you tonight, which is amending Resolution 212 of 2022 to increase the Green Urban Space Grant funding in the additional amount of $5 million, no county tax dollars, for a new grant total to amount to $10 million, no county tax dollars, Office of the County Executive, the ARPA Department, and I'll call the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Then the resolution has been adopted, and which will be a great thing for the county of Rockland to have done. So thank you. I'm sorry I was late getting on, but technology is not my forte. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then the resolution has been adopted as read.
All right. So motion to adjourn. It's moved by Mr. Earl, second by Mr. Foley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for starting the meeting and so that people didn't have to wait for me to get on.
Of course, I'm glad you were able to make it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a meeting of the Rockland County Legislature's Government Operations Committee. Lauren, would you please take the roll? Are you doing it?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Legislator Tyre. Legislator Jobson. Legislator Weider. Legislator Soskin. Be honest. Legislator Paul. Committee Vice Chair Legislator Earl. Committee Chair Legislator Grant.
I'm here, thank you. We have a quorum?
No, Legislator Soskin did confirm his attendance, so we were waiting for him.
Legislator Soskin's on his way. Right, this is a discussion item, so it doesn't require a quorum for us to move the meeting along. We'll hold off on the adoption of minutes, and maybe Phil will get here and we can handle that at the end. The discussion item tonight was the Arpa programs and grants, and maybe it's my fault that I should probably coordinate it a little bit better with Chairwoman Cornell and Vice Chair Wolf regarding the item that was on their agenda. I just wanted to have a fuller discussion on the Arpa programs that have been offered to date, the funds that remain to be allocated, and to discuss any issues that may have arisen during the course of the administration of these programs. I do have one very specific project that I'd like to discuss, but I want to have a fuller discussion first. So for the beginning, I guess, Jenna, and I want to thank you as well, because you've been very responsive to me and my request for information in the past. I think you're running a very professional office, and I'm hopeful that that'll continue. You know, we have the food security grant, the reviving Rockland restaurants, the urban green spaces, which the environmental committee is increasing the amount of funding for, the Rockland Small Business Rescue, and the transformational impacts. I don't have a lot of information. That's the one with working with the police departments.
Yes, it's much more than that, but yes, it's the Community Violence Prevention Program.
So I guess where I'd like to start is at the top with the food security grant. It looks like from the summary that I have, there's $500,000 that was allocated and $21,450 has been awarded.
Expended. Correct.
How many total grants have we received?
So we've only received, that's actually our smallest grant to date. We've received 10 applications. Most of them are reopened. One of the biggest challenges our non-for-profits face is the sam.gov registration, which is required by Treasury. In order for any entity to receive federal funds, they must be identified as not being delinquent in the eyes of the federal government. And because they're so backlogged, because to receive any ARPA funding, anyone has to apply for this, it's taking months. And so we've awarded some others, but we can't actually go into contract with them until they receive that certificate of
Okay,
registration.
So do you have the information about how many applications have actually been made, how many have been awarded, how many pending, and how many have been rejected?
So the food security grant, the applications that have made have been 10. We do have an opportunity review, which is in the queue. I don't have the actual number of how many are still in the process, because we don't actually get to review the application until it's fully submitted. But 10 so far for that one.
And so far.
Yes.
What kind of outreach are we doing? Do you think it's sufficient? Do you think it needs to be changed in any way for the food security?
For this one in
I'm
particular,
particularly concerned with the winter coming and making sure that people are
are fed, yes.
are
Well-
fed as well as kept warm in their homes.
So the outreach has been well received. What we do is we go to all of the collaborative meetings. That's where we typically start. So the collaborative meetings allow us to touch base with most of the non-for-profits that work in the area. So there's the Havistraw Collaborative, the Ramapo Collaborative, the Spring Valley Collaborative. And all of the non-for-profits and organizations that work, the boots on the ground, that work with the individuals that are most in need, attend those meetings. One of the biggest obstacles too, aside from sam.gov, is that a lot of these non-for-profits already receive funding from the CARES Act. We can't duplicate funds. So it limits a little bit of what they're allowed to apply for on our food security grant. So we've talked to them at length. We have multiple conversations with them on the phone. We go back and forth on emails. We've had Teams meetings with them. They've come in person to present their ideas, because we are trying very hard to find ways in which we can help fund our non-for-profits to help, especially with inflation and the winter coming.
So in terms of some of the major not-for-profits operating in the county that provide meals or pantry services, such as Meals on Wheels and People to People, are we able to work with them or not?
We can work with any of them. The only thing is, with people to people, they received a significant amount of money from the CARES Act. So a lot of what we said that they were eligible for, they've already been funded for. But we've talked to Touch, Bridges, trying to just think, now you got me. I can't remember. But yeah, we've talked to a lot of the organizations. We talked to a lot of the smaller grassroots organizations, Catholic Charities being, well, that's not smaller, but Catholic Charities, Helping Hands, which is one that works directly with the homeless in Spring Valley. And again, a lot of these non-for-profits are little mom and pop non-for-profits that don't have the capacity. So we're trying very hard to help them apply for these grants because it is a significant amount of paperwork that the federal government requires on their end. And unfortunately for some, it takes many steps to get there.
At this stage of the game, are you aware or unaware of who those 10 applicants are?
Yeah, I'm aware. Yeah,
Okay.
they're all on the portal, on the Amplifund portal. That's how they have to apply.
And how would you characterize the distribution countywide?
Pretty evenly distributed. I mean, we actually created a map of all the food pantries in Rockland County, and they're pretty clear that they're in disproportionately impacted communities. So you have a lot in Haverstraw, a lot in Spring Valley. So that's just based on the demographic. That's where most of our pantries are. There really aren't that many in other areas, so unfortunately we can't do anything. But Touch is based out of Valley Cottage. United Way is another one. Even though they're not specifically a food pantry, they work with other smaller organizations that are food pantries. So the funding can go to United Way, and then they can help distribute the funds to the smaller food pantries. So it gets spread out a little bit more.
Okay. How many months has the food security grant program been open for?
So that one's been about 8 or 9 months. That was one of our first
one of our
ones.
first,
Mhm.
right. How confident are you in the money being dispersed?
Well, now that we've recognized the obstacles and we've tailored it a little bit more, and we've really, not so much tailored it, but we've given non-for-profits a little bit more understanding of how they can spend the money, I'm more confident going into the next year. It was a little bit of a challenge because, again, they were still trying to spend their CARES money. And then they got CDBG money, community development money. So all that money was kind of thrown at them at once. And in order to comply, they had to spend first, give receipts, show us what they spent, so they didn't duplicate. So now we're kind of on the same page.
Any questions related to the food security grant from the committee? Anyone on the video? Mr. Earl. Specifically, we'll do them one at a time, food security.
Okay, right. You mentioned Spring Valley, right? You didn't mention MLK Center. You had actually we met
Yes.
with the director, Nathan Mungy. So they're included on that, right?
They haven't formally applied yet.
Oh, they haven't?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I've had conversations. I speak to them
Right.
regularly to help them, but they have not formally applied. But Pastor Darden, so the other faith-based ones
Right.
are starting to trickle in. So
Oh,
yes,
okay.
just based on conversations, word of mouth, more people are coming to me with questions, and that's how, but MLK has not formally applied
I'm
yet.
glad you mentioned Pastor Darden.
Yes.
She's every week.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Every week, maybe twice. Thank you.
I guess related to this and all the others that follow, are we working with our municipal partners in terms of the outreach, the villages and the towns whose leaders are generally very familiar with the organizations operating in their area?
Yes, we've been working with chief of staff. We've been working with economic development advisors for all of the grants. We've been working with literally everyone that we know that attends collaboratives, that has a relationship, that may be on a board. We're trying to reach out. My policy and compliance coordinator, I literally are walking the streets. We're handing out all of our flyers. I'm out, I think, 3 or 4 times a week, going to different towns and villages, trying to get people to understand what ARPA is. Because I will tell you, the first question I get after I hand it to them is, what's the catch? So most people don't believe that we're giving out money. So it's a little bit difficult just getting through that.
It's good to know. I'm very happy to hear that you're working with them as well. Anybody else? Reviving Rockland restaurants, we allocated $500,000 about the same time. This was one of our early programs,
Yes, that was-
post-COVID. I would expect that this one is probably
Almost
winding down a
closed.
little bit.
That one's almost closed.
Okay.
We've approved a total of $382,744.59. We've obligated, which means So again, with the Rockland Reviving Rockland Restaurant Grant, we allowed for past and future expenditures. So if you had outdoor dining and you had to pay, you could get reimbursed after March 3rd, 2021. But if you wanted to continue outdoor dining and you had to bring stuff back inside, or you wanted to just improve the patio or the umbrellas or whatever it may be, future expenses were permitted as well. So all we've expended so far is $227,656.99 because we're still waiting for vouchers. There is open requested ones. Again, they're waiting for sam.gov, which is $44,939.01. And for our unsubmitted requested, who have not fully completed their application and submitted, it's a total of $706,755.18. So there's potential that if more people apply, we will run out of money and have to deny some.
Maybe this is an action item. Nicole is able to track the grants that are already posted through PeopleSoft.
Mhm.
Grants that might be pending or still in the queue, probably you don't have access to that, do you?
Not yet, yeah.
Would it be possible for you to do at least a once a month summary of each of the grant programs, allocated, expended, pending, total committed?
So, yes, I will tell you, we have to do it every 3 months. That's our expenditure reports that we are required to submit to Treasury. So what you see on the annual report, the breakdown at the bottom of our annual report is exactly all of our expenditures.
Have you done the latest quarter? The report?
It's due October 31st, so we are as of today.
Okay, so you
yes.
can make sure that we have
Sure.
copies of those when
Mhm.
they're done. The quarterly report. Thank you. Jen is, we're going to go with, I think, the quarterly report. We'll take a look at that and maybe make decisions based on what we see there. Anybody else have a comment on that or an idea? None? Okay. Turn to geographic distribution. I noticed pretty quickly on these Reviving Rockland Restaurant grants, there was only one in Garnerville. There were none in Stony Point, none in the village of Haverstraw. The Garnerville one is within the village of West Haverstraw, but again, I don't see anything like Pomona, Mount Ivy, Tompkins Cove, Stony Point.
Yeah, so Stony Point, there's an approved one in Stony Point.
New City's got quite a few
They do.
places that sell food to the public. The distribution kind of,
Yeah, so Stony Point does actually have one. It's still pending sam.gov, as does Haverstraw. Unfortunately, there are certain parts of Rockland that are not allowed to have outdoor dining. So this one was really based on resolutions from towns and municipalities and space. So a lot of this, Congers, Suffolk, New City, Orangeburg, and Nyack seem to be our biggest ones, but that's just because they have the capacity to do outdoor dining. We have tried so hard with people in Spring Valley for the few restaurants in Spring Valley that do offer outdoor dining. They've disappeared. We don't want to stalk. So we have to give up at some point and hope that they come back, but.
Mr. Yeager.
Who and when was the decision made to limit it only to restaurants that had outdoor dining?
It was just the outdoor dining grant. So when COVID first happened, one of the biggest issues was restaurants were the most impacted and their only option of staying open was outdoor dining. So that's why we tailored it to that. And then we created a whole small business grant for everybody else.
Okay. Have a follow-up?
So there are two programs that restaurants can go to get money through ARPA. One is anybody and one is anybody who had outdoor dining?
Correct. Yeah. But there are other limitations, eligibility limitations, so that we don't duplicate and restaurants don't hog the money. So there were rules around that.
Okay, and how much is the total for the non-outdoor dining
The small business grant is $2 million,
and the outdoor dining was?
500,000.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of, I see on a list of awards that have already been made, there's about, I think, 18, just under 20 Do we know how many applications there were for this, and whether there's any pending, and whether or not we expect the full $500,000 to be expended?
Yes, so there's only currently 2 applications open. We've awarded 12 restaurants so far, and we have 34 restaurants that are in the queue, which total $706,000. So if they're all eligible and they all apply, some will be
more
denied.
money.
Yeah, I'll need more money.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Okay. Just on the urban green spaces, we have $10 million that's been allocated for the Haverstraw Bay Park. Has that work been done yet?
I'm sorry, how much?
Correct? Go ahead. Help me out, Nicole.
Okay, so the urban green spaces was the initial 5 million, which was done by Resolution 212, but then we just this evening approved the approved in committee the additional 5 million. So I'm just trying to kind of keep this spreadsheet up to date. So once that goes through, there'll be a total of $10 million available for the open green space program.
Yes.
I understand that a little better. Let me come back to green space in a minute. Under the Rockland Small Business Rescue, we allocated $2 million. Looks like we've expended about $1.5 million. Is that correct?
So right now, for our small business, we have approved a total of $473,784.53. We've expended $444,217.92 of the open. And actually, this is not to date because we just approved 3 more small businesses today. But as of yesterday, the open requested was $386,793.96. And the unsubmitted requested, if they are all eligible, is over $2 million. So we have a total, so they are beneficiaries, they are not subrecipients, so they get their checks much faster. So they are just a beneficiary to the grant. And so their checks, with the help of finance, has run pretty quickly, and they get their checks within 2 weeks. So that's why you'll see the expended is pretty close to the award. So we've helped 16 small businesses. We have 9 currently open in the review process, and there are 22 unsubmitted.
Well, do you have any questions about the availability of information? No? You're good?
Okay, so the spreadsheet that I put together is essentially what is posted on PeopleSoft.
That's expended.
That's what I'm going. So I do not have anything that's pending. So what happens, just so for everyone's edification, when a contract gets encumbered, okay, that's what I'm putting here. And then I'm also checking to see when it actually gets expended. And in some cases, you're paying a grantee in pieces, I guess.
Yes,
Once they
subrecipients,
reach
yeah.
certain milestones or they've submitted additional documentation, what have you. What I'm trying to do here is just to get the whole picture, because I want to just go back and just kind of keep track of how we've allocated this, $63 million worth of ARPA funds.
Yeah, until they sign a contract, we can't encumber the funds. So until they get their SAM.gov, they've been approved, so they can proceed to the contract phase, but you won't see it in PeopleSoft until we put the request in for the contract to be awarded.
Okay, so since there's significant timing issue here, Reds, we'll take a look at your quarterly report. We may want that on a monthly basis, just so that we have the information available to us. And my understanding is that the transformational impacts, we haven't.
No, so we are working for that was just like 2 weeks ago, but what we're doing is we're working with the Youth Bureau. So they run TeenWorks and the Youth Employment Program, which normally is up on Friday. They have funding until September 30th, but they have over 50 kids that they are trying to keep employed and keep off the streets. So we are expanding their youth employment program till the end of the year to pilot them as youth mappers. So the community youth mappers are meant to fill in the gaps and give kids a voice so that they really feel like they're heard. They feel as though they have civic pride, because if you're proud of where you live, the chances of you harming it or getting into trouble or trying to destroy it are very slim. So that's what we're doing. But we'll also be working with the sheriff and the DA to do gun buyback programs and other initiatives to help rebuild and create community connection.
I'm sorry to my colleagues, I did skip. Does anybody have questions related to the small business rescue plan? I noticed that, again, there's a distribution from the list that I can see. There's a distribution issue in terms of whether or not we've got penetration across the county and into some of all of our
Oh, yeah,
downtown.
the small businesses.
Right.
That is, you see, we actually have more in Ramapo for the small businesses, which is exciting because they didn't really get an opportunity for the reviving Rockland restaurant, which we understood because Ramapo's limited on their outdoor dining. So we're happy to see that it's distributed pretty equitably throughout the county when it comes to the small business grant.
Any questions from legislators? Any questions from anybody on screen? Hearing none. Okay, so I guess we'll go to the urban green spaces, which I have a particular issue with. But just give us an overview, or since I missed it and Lon missed it, tell us about the urban green spaces. I know you discussed it in environmental.
Yeah, so the Urban Green Space Grant has actually been our most popular grant so far. And it's really exciting because we gave the opportunity for local governments and for non-for-profits to apply for open spaces. So one of the things that we were very happy to see the final rule. So the interim final rule didn't talk so much about it, but Treasury looked back at the information and they understood that the built environment had a significant impact on COVID and how people got COVID. And if we're all aware, Rockland County got hit pretty hard. And we still are. COVID hasn't gone away as much as people want to hope and pray that it is. So the Urban Green Space Grant was an opportunity for municipalities to open new spaces or to repair the spaces that they have. So one in particular is the Spring Valley Memorial Park. There are parts of Spring Valley Memorial Park that are falling apart. They asked us if we could help build a bridge, restore some of the playground, put in a water park to allow community members in Spring Valley to have a place to go, especially if they live in a multi-generational, densely populated home. It was an opportunity for them to be outside to prevent them from getting sick on the inside. And so it's been great. So we have over $3.6 million approved on that one, and their open requested is 2.36. So again, I'll run out of money and I can't do that. And then the unsubmitted requested, which actually has changed a little bit, is $2.3 million as well. And that's just the local governments. That doesn't include the non-for-profits that have applied.
Okay. Can you tell us how many applications there are? How many have been approved? How many are pending? How many have not been reviewed? And how many have been rejected?
Okay. Hang on. So we have 21 urban green space applications that have been approved. We have 13 reopened currently, and we have 19 unsubmitted. There have been 4 that have been rejected.
Okay, I guess, tell us a little bit about the process. Just kind of the review process in particular from start to finish. I see we have a number of applications that have been approved. Reopen, I'd like to understand that a little bit better. Certainly the unassigned and then the rejected, why they've been rejected and whether or not they've had an opportunity to remediate their application or whatever.
Sure. So that's why we reopen them. So anytime we reopen an application, we've done the initial review. So the policy and compliance coordinator takes a look at it first, and then I take a look at it. And we ensure that they meet the eligibility requirements. It's pretty easy to do with a municipality as long as they have all their insurance documentation. We do create checklists, so everyone has to submit all the required documentation in order for us to even be able to review from the get-go. So they also have to be sam.gov, but if a municipality isn't part of sam.gov, then we have bigger problems. So it just helps everybody be on the same page. After that, we evaluate the application based on community buy-in. One of the things that the federal government via Treasury has stressed is that it has to be an equity-focused participation. So you have to have a significant amount of community buy-in, and you also have to make sure that it's evenly distributed and fairly distributed throughout the county or throughout whatever your grant application is. So that's essentially what we do. We then do site visits. So my policy and compliance coordinator and I go out, we take our own pictures. Sometimes we follow up, we'll reopen, we record the pictures ourselves. We take from there, then we look at it again, we reevaluate it based on our checklist, and we decide whether or not it should be approved.
Who makes the final decision?
I do.
You do. Okay. We have 13 that have been reopened for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
Those reasons again,
Oh, they vary. They're missing documentation. A couple of them have used the same letters of support. Can't do that. Can't have a blanket letter of support for every single park, especially if it's all throughout. One thing with federal funds, it's open from sunrise to sunset, and it is open to everybody. So people need to be aware that if it's in this particular area, there's going to potentially be an increase of traffic. There's going to be a potentially increase of everything. And so the neighbors and all the community members around there need to be able to support that in order for us to move forward. So most of it is just stuff like that.
so there's 4 that have been rejected. Can you give us a synopsis of why each one was rejected?
Sure. One was rejected because it was a capital project. Actually, I'm sorry, 2 were rejected because they were capital projects, but both of the capital projects could potentially, as we wrote in the rejection letter, go towards our feasibility study for our walking path, which I know part of the action item was to talk about next steps, so I can get into that in a minute. The other one, unfortunately, led out to a double yellow line, and that is not safe, and we can't put people at risk. And the other one was not equity focused. Unfortunately, what ended up happening, because we want to make sure that we're providing positive impacts to the community, we got a lot of pushback from the community, but not so much for the park, more for that specific park. In fact, the one that was rejected for that received 2 other grants for 2 other existing parks.
Okay, that's the one that I'm most interested in right now, and I think you're probably aware of that. I'd been contacted. Were there any legislators that wanted to speak on the process? The agenda just described, or any questions related to it? Anyone else? So I'd been contacted by trustees in the Village of Pomona regarding projects that they'd submitted, and they had been very aggressive and very, very active in trying to access the money that's available from the Arpa program. And they had 3 projects. 2 of them have been, my understanding is 2 of them been awarded.
Mhm.
One was approved, but was reopened and subsequently rejected. And that's the one that's related to the equity issues. And my concern there is this. I have no problem at all with people advocating for or against an issue that they feel strongly about. I really have no objection to that at all, as long as it's honest in its foundation. And the problem I have with the project that was rejected in Pomona, which was to create essentially a swing set and a couple of benches, is that an adequate description?
Based on the schematic, yes.
Based on the schematic that was submitted. And I had met with trustees McFadden and Lasker at the park. I looked at the site myself. As a matter of fact, I went to each one of the places that they had applied for funds for, and I gave them what my recommendations were. And it's essentially what they had hoped to provide was what I would call a vest pocket park in an existing 20-acre park, less than 1,000 square feet. Now 20 acres is close to 900,000 square feet. And there was some opposition from the neighborhood, and I would expect that. If you've lived next to the woods all your life, you probably want them to stay woods all your life. But I didn't find the homes to be personally too close to the site that they had described. They described to me a setting where you walk in off the street, but not even a sidewalk to denote that it was there. So it would be something that people in the community would be aware of, and not necessarily an obvious obtrusive thing to the community. Where I got a little bit upset was after the process was initiated and people started contacting the county about it. And I'm going to read to you a description of what was posted, what was put on doorstep letters, social media, and a GoFundMe or a GoFundMe like,
Change.org.
I'm sorry?
Change.org.
Change.org, that's it. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that very much. And this is the description that was included for this vest pocket park in a neighborhood where people walk on a regular basis. If built, the playground would create environmental, social, and economic consequences. Flora and fauna would be destroyed. The residential community that borders the parkland would be severely disrupted with unmanageable traffic, pollution, noise, safety issues, garbage, sewer, ever present and for years to come. I found that to be a gross exaggeration of what was planned for this neighborhood West Pocket Park. And if that is what the basis of, what were the words you used?
Inequitable.
Inequitable, then I have a big problem with it.
That actually was not.
I find it to be dishonest.
Okay.
So tell me about that.
So yes, that was originally presented to us by one of the actual resident whose backyard abuts the parkland. And so just to give you, when we do our site visits, sometimes I take my director of environmental, because I ask him for his opinion on certain things. And there is a giant boulder that is in the way of where they want to put the parkland or the park. And they also are federally required to make an ADA compliant path and 2 parking lots, 1 handicap accessible. So you're putting a parking lot in the middle of a neighborhood, which was a little bit of a concern for our environmental department as well. So we still said, okay, this is obviously Pomona who would have to take on the responsibility. $200,000 is not going to get them a lot. And then the letter came. So the letter was not the reason. It was the reason we reopened it. We wanted to reassess it because, again, this money is not to be meant to be contentious in any way. It's meant to actually bring people together. We absolutely expected no matter what, we weren't going to make everybody happy in our decisions. So I joined change.org and I joined the neighborhood app and I read the comments. And so I wanted to see exactly what it is. You are absolutely right. If someone's going to claim that fauna and flora are going to be a problem, they have to show me evidence-based proof of that, because unless he's an environmentalist or an engineer, he has no basis to stand on. But what was very interesting in the comments was that people who objected it did not object parks. They just objected that one. They asked that if the money were to be used, could they please use it in Secor and Burgess Meredith, walking distance to where they wanted to build a brand new park. Their biggest concern was that you were going to tear down the home of wildlife and it was going to cause big issues. There were some comments that just made absolutely no sense. People just wanted to be mean. Of course, we ignored those. So we went back out and we did a site visit. After that, I called that trustee and I asked him if he would use the funding for an environmental review and then have a town hall. He refused. He told me no matter what, people were going to object him and I couldn't listen to them. I then made it clear to him that the mayor of Pomona was not in approval of this. His response, don't listen to him, he's useless, only talk to the deputy mayor. Who signs the contracts? The mayor.
Can I just stop you there? Was there a resolution adopted by the village board to move this project?
Without the mayor.
Without the, was it at a formal village meeting where part of the official record of the village? Because that was my understanding, and if it's not correct, I want to know.
I cannot confirm. I don't know. I'd have to look into that. He did say that he was proposing it to the village board. I don't know if it was approved by the village board. I'm not sure.
So just for your future use, request certified resolutions of whatever body it is, whether it's a town or a village or a school district, because then that is a legal document that you're entitled to have and certifies that it was conducted in public at a proper meeting. Certified resolution.
Sure. Yeah, so again, it was a little too much. I tried very hard to see if we could do an environmental review. I even offered to go to the town hall myself. I don't live in Pomona, but as a county resident, I would have access to that park too because it's federally funded. So it would be an opportunity. And that's why anybody could write a comment if you lived in Rockland. Actually, you could write a comment if you lived anywhere because you have to make it known that that's an existing park because it's federally funded. So there was he wasn't, the trustee was not willing to meet me halfway. He was not willing to compromise. He had his mind set and he was getting 2 other parks. And again, I have to equitably distribute these funds. So Ramapo, Pomona, West Havistraw, Clarkstown, everyone has to get their fair share. So the fact that he was already being awarded 2 other parks and there were so many issues, we chose not to approve that one.
So you make a good point there as well. For the additional funds that have been awarded, should we be setting limits on applications from a community?
Should we what?
Should we be setting limits on an number of applications from a community to ensure equitable distribution? And
We're doing that.
And how would we do that? Well, Pomona, if I understood you correctly, Pomona submitted 3 applications.
Hmm?
All 3 were approved.
No,
All 3 were approved and 1 was reopened.
no, they were not all approved at the same time. In fact, if Tamarack got approved, his other one would not have been approved.
But that's something for them to deal with. It's not, that is not a process issue that I'm concerned about. If they submitted one before the other, but you accepted 3 applications from them.
It's a.
My
first.
understanding was that 3 were approved and one of them was reopened. Is that correct or not?
Yes, in the grand scheme
Okay,
of
so-
things, yes,
then
but the
th-
third one wasn't approved until like
So
3 weeks ago.
That becomes a non-argument for the purposes of our discussion right now, because it was approved, it was reopened. I just want to understand the reopening process. And I found the 2 trustees that I met with to be very agreeable. I'm disappointed if they were not willing to work with you on that. But I found them to be very agreeable. As a matter of fact, I made some suggestions to them for the Secor project that might be less intrusive to the neighbors, and they were very receptive to that. Okay. Mr. Hofstein.
This particular project that we're speaking about, I believe after a meeting, I made mention to you that I was contacted. And how it started out, so you know how I was involved, is I received an email from someone, and I told them that you're the first person I'm hearing that there's a problem. And this person wrote to me that there are many people that are upset with this project. The next thing I knew, I was getting a number of emails, which I made mention to you. And lo and behold, one of the 2 trustees that you spoke about reached out to me, called and said, first of all, what is it any of my business? It's not my district.
I know where you're going.
No.
I
Let me
know where you're going
finish.
with this line, and I don't want to.
Let me just finish. Can I just finish?
Sure.
I'm not going in any direction. I think you should understand the whole what's going on here.
You made me aware of that.
Okay. And then I said to him, well, I represent the entire county. And he said, have you ever done this before? And I said, yes, I have. And I'm on record representing people outside of my district who have come to me. The next comment was, well, how many people have written to you? I said, that doesn't matter. If there are a number of people that have voiced their concern, shouldn't that be addressed? Whatever you have, I'll double it. I said, well, this isn't a contest. I said, the concern being is that there are a number of people, and shouldn't you try to be working it out with them? It doesn't matter. I have more people. I'll double whatever people, the amount of people come in and write to you. I just want to make you aware of it. I'm not going in any other direction, but to let you know and let everyone else know what transpired here. And I think it's my obligation to share that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's about it. I'm just telling the truth and what transpired. And that's why I called it to your attention, because the proposed location was in your section of Pomona, not mine. It's a courtesy. I was giving you a heads up.
And I think I mentioned at the time that I appreciated that, and I met with them afterwards. I'm still not convinced, Jen, I'm sorry to say, that much of this wasn't motivated by the misinformation that was put out on all those media channels, doorstep letters, social media, change.org. I do know that it was conveyed to me that people in favor of the park did express their interest there. Leave that up to you to describe what you received in behalf of the application.
I received a letter, a typed letter with people's typed names. They weren't even signatures. That was their community support. I received actual emails from the opposition of concern.
I think I made it clear, and I appreciate your answers. I appreciate your candor. Steve, you're here. You just tell me, the county executive's office, had advocated one way or the other for this project.
Advocate one way or the other? No. We left, it's up to Janet, it's up to her team to forward.
Thank you. I think I've asked all my questions, Mr. Yeager.
It always, it shouldn't surprise me how people can fight over the strangest things. When I first moved up into Rockland County, there's a park nearby called, we affectionately know it as the Duck Pond. It's called Sandy Brook Park. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's on the corner of Sandy Brook Drive and Summit Park. There currently sits a couple of tiny pieces of playground equipment. The result of which made almost nobody happy, but that's what happens when you get the type of community support and opposition for something. I will never forget the meeting that took place before that little pocket park was built. I don't even know if it's 1,000 square feet. It's probably less. It was a relatively newish neighborhood for Orthodox Jews moving up there. We were one of the first families up there with young kids. It was I guess a second generation neighborhood. The houses were all built between the late 60s and the early 70s. And so they were mostly populated by relatively older people. I'm not saying old, but relatively older than the young families that were starting to move in there. And at the time, I knew the people who owned the park happened to be the town of Ramapo, and so I suggested that perhaps some playground equipment go in there. And we had a meeting. Christopher St. Lawrence, the former supervisor of town of Ramapo, held a meeting at the Colton School on Grandview Avenue. It was the closest large place to have anything. And I'll never forget walking in, and there's, I don't know, maybe 150 people in there for a discussion about a couple of pieces of playground equipment. It's one of the largest meetings I've ever seen. I think the only one larger that I've seen personally was for plastic bags when we filled this room, because everybody was worried about the plastic bags. And there were two sides to the room, and on one side were all the young Orthodox families, on the other side were everybody else. Of course, the children were all playing together in the back of the room. And so there were discussions back and forth about, should we have this, a couple of swings and a bench for little children to play in this park? And one after another, people got up, and it would ruin the quality of life in the neighborhood and all the traffic that was going to come from it. And I used to walk with my kids through the park, showing them the wildlife that was never going to be there again if we put these playground equipment in. And I remember Alana, my ex-wife and current legislative counsel, getting up and telling the story about how when we lived in Queens, we had two young children, and there was a small pocket park in the neighborhood. And Queens is a little bit different than Rockland. They have a lot fewer trees and places to run around. So the pocket park was a major part of the community. And she told the story about how she took her two young kids, who are now 23 and 21, to the park to play and whatnot, and how many people she met of all different, shapes and sizes and colors, all different nationalities, languages being spoken there. And she said, what a wonderful thing it would be if we could have something like that in Rockland. And when she sat down, somebody from the other side of the room, I don't know who, yelled out, "Go back to Queens." I have found interesting how divisive parks can be, because people are terrified that the wrong type of people might congregate there. I've also found in my limited experience over my lifetime that parks is one of the few places where you can have everybody come and meet. And it is an interesting intersection of different cultures and economic statuses that you really can't get in many other places. Like, some of the restaurants that we're helping out with the other money that we're using. Parks are the one place where people can get together and it doesn't matter who you are, because if you have a 3-year-old kid and somebody else has a 3-year-old kid, there's something to talk about. It bothers me greatly that this happened. And it wouldn't bother me greatly if the letter that had been written by your office said something along the lines of, we're trying to spread it around, we're going to save the third for somebody else instead. It's not what it said. The letter said, basically, and I have the letter, so I know, first of all, the letter said that the county was, quote unquote, re-evaluating the project. To me, re-evaluating the project means it was evaluated already. Once it was evaluated, it sounds like the evaluation led to an initial approval. Now, I don't know that because I'm not in your office, so I don't know what the thought process was. But the concept of reevaluation is something that, to me, sounds like it was already evaluated, and now we're doing a reevaluation in order to do something other than what we did before. The next is that the letter does not say anything about the fact that there are 2 projects there. The letter simply says, essentially based on community opposition, we can't approve it at this time. And again, the problem that I have is, I'd love to know who the people are. You mentioned one person is a direct backdoor neighbor to where this was going to go. Well, I have found in my vast experience on this issue, including a project that I'm in the midst of helping out with in my day job, that people don't want to be right next door to something. And if we left it up to the people who are right next door to anything, nothing would get done. Because if you want to build a house, right, the guy behind you who's only seen trees for the last 50 years might not be happy about building a house. And I had that when I was in a councilman in the town of Ramapo. We were approving a project that is now being built. It's been a long time. I voted to approve that project maybe 10 years ago, maybe more, and they're finally finishing it off now. And somebody came up to me very angry. What would you do if it was in your backyard? So I said to this person, we're in my backyard, and if it were nice enough and there were enough buffers, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And I said the same thing 4 years ago when I was still living in the marital home where Alana's now living with our children. When somebody came in for a bunch of houses on the former Matterhorn project, which backs up to the property that I lived in. And I said to them, build it nice. I don't really want to see it too much, so give me a little bit of a buffer. I think it was 50 feet on a property that's 1,000 feet on the side, maybe more. And I'm okay with it. A lot of people aren't that way, but we shouldn't be making our decision based on the squeaky wheels in cases like this. And again, I looked at one of the alternative properties that was mentioned apparently near the Palisades Parkway, it looks like. It also looks to me, the Meredith Burgess
It's an
property.
existing part, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's not is that in the village of Pomona?
It is, yes. It was given to the village of Pomona, town of Haverstraw.
Okay, because I'm not sure where the village of Pomona actually touches the Palisades Parkway.
It's behind the Palisades. There's 2 entrances to Burgess. So
Okay,
is
and one
on
is
the
actually
east
physically in the
one is
village?
Pomona. It's down the street from where Tampa
Okay.
is.
Nevertheless, I don't know what's going on at Meredith Burgess. I don't know if there is existing playground equipment. I have no idea. What I do know is that these pocket parks serve an incredibly important purpose in those communities. And the whole purpose of them is to have them spread out in various different areas. And so, look, again, I can understand why it's being done. I only regret, I really do regret that the people who lied about this are going to win, and lie they did. Because there's nothing about this park that was going to take 20 acres and clear cut it for, something like they have in Westchester with a Ferris wheel. This was, it sounds like it was less than 1/100th of the property that was going to be used. And in that sense, it's a shame. And I would have preferred had the letter said something along the lines of, you've got two, you can't have three. And just in the future, I would suggest that sometimes there's two ways to say something, and perhaps one way might be better than the other.
So that was
Thank you.
a conversation that was had with the trustee, and I've only met and spoken to one of the trustees that you are referring to. The letters are to be intended to focus on the application itself. It's for auditing purposes, and these are federal dollars. In no way does it say Pomona's not allowed to go forth and do what Pomona wants to do. But federal money is much different than county money, and there are a lot more requirements that go into it. There are a lot more strings. And when we get audited for the life of the playground, it has to be seen as an equitably focused environment. And based on the fact that nothing was even done and it was a contentious argument, you can't put federal dollars towards that. And that's why we said no.
I'm gonna end the discussion here. I appreciate your responses. I've always found you to be responsive and professional. I'm not completely happy with the letter for a number of different reasons. One, it's unsigned. And is it only speaks to this issue of all projects must be also able to demonstrate evidence of sufficient community support. Due to the recent community response, we believe that this project will not provide a positive experience for Rockland residents, resulting in insufficient community support. I guess an action item might be, what is the standard of community support? Is opposition to a project in and of itself sufficient? Or is there another standard that we need to meet so that other applicants won't be faced with possible rejection?
Get you the quote from the final rule.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenna. Again, I appreciate your coming. I'm not going to hide my displeasure with this specific issue, how it was handled by the community, and if, as you said, the trustee was not responsive to you in making changes, although there is no reference here to the ADA issues or anything like that, then I'll have that conversation with him as well. But thank you again for coming tonight. I don't want to intrude on Mr. Soskin's meeting. I already have. I do have one item. Thank you, Jenny. I'm just going to do the adoption of minutes for April 26, 2022, moved by Mr. Soskin. I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. I'll take a motion to adjourn. So by Mr. Earl, seconded by Mr. Soskin, or Ms. Paul, and all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Stop the video.
No. Now you know why I want to get out. Maybe. Are you here for the duration or are you here for the duration tonight? No? Okay. Why aren't we starting? Why aren't we starting? Leslie's got to get him going. Well, there's only one. How hard can it be? How hard can it be?
Okay. Yeah. Can you sit down there? Yeah.
It's okay it's okay. Next time, come sit here.
Come on. Only one agenda. Yes, it's going.
What?
I usually come to all of the meetings, so they know about this meeting.
What Gobox?
With the environment.
What's up?
I had a agenda, but he's here. Doesn't,
Yeah, no.
be open.
You?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Multi-Service Committee to order. I'll ask the clerk to take the roll.
Start Antonio. Start Joe. Start Annie Paul. Start Howard Reader. Start Vince Tower. Start McGowan. Judge Askin.
Here.
You have to co-op.
I'd like to start with the adoption of the minutes of the September 13th meeting. Let's see, Tony Earl, will you move it? And Legislator McGowan, will you second it? Okay, any corrections? Additions? Hearing none? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. We have one item this evening, referral 9535, approving the acceptance of grant funds from the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority Program Opportunity Notice for third-party support and advanced code compliance technology to be used by and to be implemented in the village of Spring Valley by the county of Rockland in the total amount of $125,000. No county tax dollars for the term from August 11th, 22 through September 30th, 2025. I'll move it. Seconded by legislator
Paul? Okay. On the question, Mr. Brennan, want to just tell us about it?
Sure, good evening. This is approving a grant with NYSERDA, New York State Energy Development Authority. Amory Curley in my office, who's my deputy, has been working with the Department of Buildings and Codes to help get them whatever they need in terms of operations. She identified an opportunity with NYSERDA in terms of grant money that can help offset some of the county's costs in terms of the operation of the Building and Codes Department under the order from the Department of State. So this would provide funding for two things. One, if it's done, we would get the money. If we don't do it, we wouldn't get the money. They have $50,000 for third-party support, which the county could use to offset contractors that we have to hire to assist the Department of Building and Codes. Most recently, they had to bring in an engineering firm because there was a particular building that had structural deficiencies and had to be reviewed by a licensed engineer, not just a building inspector. So that $50,000 can be used to offset those type of costs going forward. And then there's an advancing code compliance for technology funding that's available, $75,000. And the state is making that money available because they realize many of the smaller municipalities have little or no automation or software or software that's not really up to date in terms of managing their building inspection and permitting process. So this would provide up to $75,000 if the county and the village of Spring Valley decided to replace the current software. If we don't do it, then we don't apply to get the $75,000, but the state did make it available to us.
In other words, use or lose?
Excuse me?
Use or lose, or would the money, the $75,000 be transferred to
Well, we have
other
until,
projects in Spring Valley?
we have until, well, they will not give the money directly to Spring Valley currently because of the order. If the state lifts the order where the county is in charge of building and codes, then they would transfer to Spring Valley. But at the current time, took almost a month for NYSERDA legal department to research it, and said that the money and the grant has to be made in the county of Rockland's name because under state directive, we're the ones who are responsible for the building and code compliance.
See.
And we have until September 30th, 2025. Use the money, to apply to use it. We have to use it before we would get reimbursed.
So the $75,000 would be for software plus?
Yes, software. And they do currently have a software program, but it is providing has some challenges. It's not one of the better programs that's on the market. So there are better solutions that are out there.
How about the hardware? They have the hardware? The
Most,
computers?
you don't need any hardware for the systems today because they're all hosted in the cloud. So you're not going to need, so they have tablets that they use now that they could use with new software. Because it's all based upon laptops and
Right.
tablets.
If they decide to go ahead on this, would the money be available fairly soon?
Yes, as soon as the legislature approves the grant and the county executive signs the grant contract, then money would be available.
Anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry. Yes, yes.
Do we have any idea how the building department is coming along? Have they,
I don't know anything about the daily operations. I know that they're working. We're helping them get contractors.
Mary, we're up and running again.
But no.
We're good, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Getting back to what we were talking about, there's a sunset, isn't there, Paul?
Excuse me?
There's a sunset from the state, whereas this was for supposedly for a period of 2 years. How would that affect this whole thing?
Chairman, yeah, there was the local law that the legislature passed sunsetted in 2 years when they passed it.
I can't hear you.
Legislature passed a local law
Yeah.
regarding this, and it was and it sunsetted after 2 years. It was passed at the beginning of February.
I see, right,
We'd be limited to work within that time frame
right.
with the money.
Okay, anybody have any questions besides Michael? Thank you, Michael. Okay, somebody on, what, no one's there. Guess my technology is reacting. Okay. Hearing nothing, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Thanks for coming down. We didn't close yet.
Yeah, you have to do motion to adjourn.
We didn't close it yet.
You have to do motion to adjourn.
We didn't. We didn't close it yet. We took a vote.
Yes.
Totally, you have
Tell
to.
them you have to adjourn.
Okay, but I didn't adjourn yet. I got some questions.
Oh, you have questions?
Yes, yes. Mr. Powers, you're familiar with things going on. Could you just possibly tell us how things are coming along in Spring Valley now, if you know?
It up, but I haven't really been involved in the day-to-day operation. But I did attend a meeting. I mean, we have a meeting with the state and Spring Valley officials every 2 weeks, you know, and then we had a meeting today. And I haven't been attending most of them, but I went to today's meeting. And, you know, we're moving along with the inspections. You know, we have a lot of consultants out there running around doing the.
So they're making progress.
Yeah, well, I believe we're making progress, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else here have any questions? Is someone here from the Board of Health? No. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Legislator Earl, seconded by Legislator McGowan and Legislator Paul. The meeting is adjourned.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 28th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Public Works Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Legislator Jobson, Legislator Carey, Legislator Paul, Legislator Wolf, Legislator Weider, Vice Chair Legislator Grant, Chairman Legislator Yeager.
Here, we have 5. 4 is good enough. Adoption minutes, 9/13/22. I'll move that, seconded by Legislator Carey. All those in favor? Are there any changes in additions or deletions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried unanimously. Has everybody on my committee had the opportunity to review the items on the agenda? At least 1, 2. Excellent. Are there any questions for anybody about these items? Hearing none, I'll move all of them simultaneously. Seconded. Red dot where? One of them is a red dot. I have 2. Are they the same? Okay. Item 5 906 is the first item. What is different on the red dot? Do we know? Data of what?
The dates got switched on the resolution in some of the clauses. Instead of the 26th to the 25th, it said 25th to the 26th.
Okay. Yeah, like on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, with that change, take a motion from legislator Carey for all items, seconded by legislator Paul. Any discussion on any of the items we've discussed? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried unanimously. Motion to adjourn by myself, seconded by legislator Carey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
What time is it?
Unfortunately, we can't start the meeting yet because it's only 7:01. So at 7:15, we'll start the Budget and Finance meeting. Chairman Weider told me he was going to make every effort to be here, but if he wasn't here on time, I was to start the meeting on his behalf. So we're going to do that promptly at 7:15. We can't start before it, Jane. It's noticed for 7:15, so we can't start before 7:15. We can start after, but not before. She's a little uncomfortable, but she's, how about me? How about me? I had to sit outside the dental offices all morning long in the car. I couldn't even walk when I got out of the car. Well, you didn't mean that. You did not mean, you did not mean that. That was a little sarcastic. He told me he probably would. Probably. No, I give him up. He's trying hard to get here.
I should know, the short answer is yes, that week. Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah, because I don't know if the kids any longer, like Shauna's like, I don't think she wants to go to another
How are you?
It's 7:14. If all legislators that are in the building, please make their way to the chambers. We'll start budget and finance. Oh, you're here. We need a quorum in the room. Yeah. With that hat pulled down over his eyes, I thought it was Ari. So that's why I thought she said, look who the cat dragged in. Four, five, six. Doing good. There's four of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is meeting the Rockland County Legislature's Budget and Finance Committee. Jackie, would you please take the roll?
Legislator Jobson, Legislator Hofstein, Legislator Yeager, Legislator Soskin, Legislator Hood Jr., Legislator Earl, Legislator Cornell, Second Vice Legislator Wolf, Vice Chair Legislator Grant,
Here.
Chairman Yeager. Chairman Weider,
Chairman Weed.
sorry.
Okay. So we have a quorum of 6. All items will have to pass unanimously. We just heard from Planning and Public Works, items 1-1 through 1-5, all passed unanimously. There are no questions or objections. I'll take these together on a motion for Mr. Yeager, seconded by Mr. Soskin. On the question? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Immediately before that, there's a red dot on PPW. Yes, so we took all those items, including the red dot. Okay, Mr. Soskin did have a multi-services committee meeting, but that item was handled as item 1-5 on planning and public works as well, so we don't have to do that again. There's nothing from public safety, economic development, or government operations tonight. The environmental committee, we had one resolution, 6-1, amending resolution 212 of 2022 to increase the green urban space grant funding in the additional amount of $5 million, no county tax dollars, for a new grant total amount of $10 million. And I'll take a motion from Mr. Yeager, seconded by Chairman Hood. On the question, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. We have 3 items on the budget and finance original issue here. We have 7-1, referral number 9534, appropriating a sum of $1,250 to the Narrashank American Legion Post 794 in Nanuet, New York for patriotic observances. Take a motion from Mr. Earl, seconded by Mr. Soskin. On the question, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Item 7-2, appropriating some $1,250 to the American Legion Sloatsburg Memorial Post number 1643. I'll take a motion from Mr. Soskin, seconded by Mr. Hofstein. On the question, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Nay. Carries unanimously. Item 7-3, referral number 9541, setting a date for a public hearing on the 2023 Rockland County budget. I'll take a motion from Chairman Hood, seconded by Mr. Hofstein. On the question, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. We're going to go back and do the adoption of minutes because I was just told to. The adoption of the minutes of 9/13/22. I'll take a motion from Mr. Earl, second from Mr. Hofstein. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. I'll take a motion to adjourn from Mr. Earl, seconded by Mr. Soskin. On the question, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your participation.